Good evening, everyone. It's 6:31 p.m. and I'll declare this special council meeting of the Town of Victoria Park open. I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of the traditional owners. Nangerapan Wajak Noongar, Budja Yakin Nidjabilya Barduk. I am honoured to be standing on Wajak Noongar country on the banks of the Swan River. Nankarach Noongar Mort Ken Karak Nidja Wajak Noongar Budja. Nankarach Nidja Noongar Brodia Kura Yeye Border Balapan Mordich Noongar Kadajan Mort where Budja Yeye. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and respect past, present and emerging leaders, their continuing cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land which continues to be important today. Nanyunka Balapan Noongar Brodia where Mort Nidja Budja. I thank them for the contribution made to life in the town of Victoria Park and to this region. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our special council meeting tonight, which is for the purpose of dealing one item of business only, which is the development application for Perth Park. Item 2 on the agenda is announcements from the presiding member. 2.1, recording and live streaming of proceedings. In accordance with Regulation 14I of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, this meeting is being audio and video recorded and live streamed on the town's website. Under Clause 39(1) of the Meeting Procedures, Local Law 2019, I do not give my permission for any other person to record the proceedings of this meeting. By being present at this meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their image and voice may be live streamed to the public. Recordings of this meeting are also made available on the town's website following the meeting. 2.2, public question time and public statement time. As this is a special council meeting, any public questions or statements must relate to the business of the agenda. There are guidelines that need to be adhered to in our council meetings, and during question and statement time, people speaking are not to personalise any questions or statements about elected members or town staff or use any possible defamatory remarks. In accordance with Clause 40 of the town's meeting procedures local law, a person addressing the council shall extend due courtesy and respect to the council and the processes under which it operates, and shall comply with any direction by the presiding member. A person present at or observing a meeting shall not create a disturbance at a meeting by interrupting or interfering with the proceedings, whether by expressing approval or dissent, by conversing or by any other means. When the presiding member speaks during public question time or public statement time, any person then speaking is to immediately stop, and every person present is to preserve strict silence so that the presiding member may be heard without interruption. As per our usual practice, I have a limit of 3 questions per person and 2 minutes allocated for statements. However, if there are very few people who wish to ask questions or make statements, we can be more generous with those limits. Item 3 is attendance. We have most elected members in attendance tonight. We unfortunately have 2 late apologies from Councillor Melrosa and Councillor Gordon Manley, and Councillor Anderson is on approved leave of absence. Other than that, other elected members are in attendance, as are members of the town's executive and staff led by the CEO, Mr Askew. Item 4 is declarations of interest. Mr CEO, do we have any declarations of interest, please?
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. I have 3. Item 9.1, Councillor Minson, an impartiality interest. I have publicly campaigned against this development, engaged with community members and participated in past council decision-making around this item. Item 9.1, yourself, Mayor Vernon, also an impartiality interest. I have been the town's spokesperson in opposition to the racetrack component of the Perth Park development, have met with and communicated with many members of the community opposed to the proposed racetrack development, and have discussed this application with members of the community specifically. And also Councillor Ingram, item 9.1, impartiality. With regard to this matter, as a candidate, I ran a platform to oppose the proposed racetrack. As a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. I declare that I will consider the matter on its merits and vote accordingly.
Thanks, Mr CEO. Are there any other elected members who have an interest to declare, haven't already done so? Councillor Biondi.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. An impartiality interest as well with respect to this item, so I've campaigned against it publicly. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Cruiser?
I have previously voted to oppose the racetrack portion of this project, as well as spoken to members of the public about it.
All right. Well, if there's no other elected members who have a declaration of interest they wish to make, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is public question time, which I now open at 6:34 p.m. And I formally ask, are there any questions from members of the public? Robin Harvey, please come forward. If we could just get you to state your name and your suburb, please.
Do I need to sit down? Robin Harvey, I come from East Perth, but I represent the Save Burswood Park Alliance, of which we have almost 2,000 members now. My question is to ask, has the application to the Victoria Park Council followed due process? Has it been submitted in a way that allows for the council or the administration to operate as per usual, or has due process been not followed? I ask this question because for the whole of this project, due process doesn't seem to have been followed. Thank you.
Thank you. I direct that question to the Manager of Development Services, Mr. Cruikshank.
Madam Mayor, I would say that due process has been followed insofar as a development application has been lodged. There's provisions of the Metropolitan Region Scheme in terms of the need to lodge an application, essentially consult on an application, review the information that's received as part of an application. I'd say that many of those aspects have been complied with. I think that probably the answer is that today the information, I'd say the application probably has followed legislative requirements, but I might just make a couple of observations around that, which, while maybe compliant, are a little bit unusual to what we may have seen with other similar applications. I guess, first of all, in terms of community consultation, we would typically see for an application of this scale and this state importance, it would be advertised for a minimum of 28 days. This one was advertised for 21 days, and I might even say that early conversations with the department is that it was intended to be only 14 days. So we made representations that wasn't long enough. So 21 days is what was landed upon, even though, again, I would say that 28 days is usually the standard timing for an application of this scale. As the report outlines, our experience also with similar applications of this kind is that the department runs the consultation. The department then provides us with a summary of the public submissions that have been received. We then review those submissions, and that informs our report and the council's decision. So it's unusual in this instance that we were told that we would have to provide a recommendation to the department before the community consultation process actually closes. So unusual, not necessarily a statutory breach, but unusual. And I guess as the report outlines, there's aspects of the application for which we feel that there's inadequate information that's been provided. And in other situations, we would go back to the department or the applicant and request further information, and generally we would receive support to have additional time to receive that information and consider it. On this occasion, we were advised that there will be no extension of time.
Thanks, Mr. Cruikshank. Any other questions from members of the public? No? All right. Well, on that basis, at 6:40 p.m, I will close public question time. Item 6 on our agenda is public statement time, which I now open at what has just become 6:41 p.m. and ask, is there any member of the public who would like to make a statement in relation to the item on the agenda tonight? If so, you get up to 2 minutes to speak. Robin Harvey, please come forward. No, that's quite all right. This is why we have public statement time as part of our council meetings.
Once again, Robin Harvey, co-chair of Save Burswood Park Alliance. I live in East Perth, but understand and hope that the town of Vic Park will continue with their the way that they have supported the community, their voters, in this terrible project. I am very disappointed at the lack of community members here at the moment. I just want to emphasise that the feeling in the community is one of despair and distress. They feel hopeless, they feel not listened to, and they feel very unsupported. That is from the state government, from their local MPs, and they feel that they want Vic Park to fight for this. Now, the comments I'd like to make are, one, it is amazing to us that there is a whole section of the park destroyed already before this DA goes through. From our point of view, it's unacceptable that the DA, for at least a third to a half of the racetrack, that is the widening of Camfield Drive, the decommissioning of Roger Mackay Drive, and the ongoing issue of the purchase of Crown land, means that there is still plenty to be done before this racetrack gets full approval. But they have, the government or OMTID, the project developers, have destroyed the park. Now we say, because people are feeling so hopeless, what can we do? It's going to happen anyway. We say, let's go back to the Burswood Park 20-year plan. So we've got scorched earth at the moment, but that does not mean we can't plant an urban forest again. It does not mean you can't have a community amphitheatre. It does not mean that you can't keep fighting for your community. We urge you to really consider this vote in terms of your representation at the last council elections, where almost everyone, I think maybe everyone, said they were against this racetrack. Not very few people want it. Certainly there are a few who think it's going to be marvellous. They all talk about F1 circuits and MotoGP, etc., not understanding that this racetrack's going to be in a small section, a 28-hectare section, of which Camfield Drive is one aspect. Now, the other thing that I don't understand or don't know, if the government or OMTID are being honest about the use of the widening of Camfield Drive for bus layovers. I'm sorry, I haven't seen their submission to you, but I'm not sure if that's in there. Now, that is, we believe, the critical issue of why they've pushed forward so hard. So that means that every weekend during winter and every weekend that there is an event that buses are used, that park will be parked out by buses, diesel buses spewing emissions into Vic Park to the apartments at Burswood Park. I don't know if you've seen the latest post on our site. We're starting to get posts of environmental health issues. I've just had an email today from one of the residents in one of the towers saying she's experiencing significant health issues now, breathing difficulties, constant itching, sneezing, coughing. She's having to close all the windows, have the air conditioner on. Now, we don't believe that's only going to be during the building phase. We believe that's going to be ongoing, and particularly during the racetrack events. My job is to represent our group and ask you to abide by your what we believe are your views, and to support your community to say no to the bit of the racetrack you can say no to. If we ever win this, it or hopefully when, we can fix the part of Burswood Park that's been destroyed. We can grow the trees. We can do what was originally proposed. So I'm really hopeful that you will listen to your electors, support us, and recognise once again, which you have in the past, what a crazy proposal this is in a high-density residential area. I will be impacted on the East Perth side. I use Burswood Park. It is one of my parks. Other residents can't go there anymore. They are so distressed. People have had to get away from Perth because they can't bear looking at it anymore. We've had people start to talk about moving out. It's a big loss to Vic Park. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Robin. Anyone else who would wish to make a statement? Yeah, like to come forward? You just need to tell us your name and your suburb, that's all, and then you have time to give us your statement.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Raftis. I live in the Burswood Peninsula, right smack in the middle of all the controversy. I have got a meeting with the town planner tomorrow. We got letters through with the plans which absolutely tell us nothing. And on it says, ring, make an appointment. So I rang up, a few dramas getting it, but I've got an appointment at 10 o'clock tomorrow with, I think his name's Mr McGowan in William Street at 10 o'clock we get these plans, absolutely nothing on it. So I'm hoping to get some info, or whether he's going to tell me anything, I don't know. But we have, since the Burswood have closed, the Crown have closed that path off, we're getting thousands of extra people through. Vic Park Drive, Bow River Crescent. Last night I had followed my granddaughter home, drunk a bit of, like he was paralytic at the door, yelling and screaming. We're getting foot traffic till late at night with the football starting, anything. So there's already a big impact on that path being closed. And as with the dirt and the dust and the asbestos, I wrote them a letter and they said, oh, it's all under control. We water it down, blah, blah, blah. So nothing we can do, is there? Just fingers crossed, and Safiotti's got it all. She's not going to change her mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen. Well, hopefully you'll stay to hear what we do with this application tonight. It'll be not too far away. Anyone else who wants to make a statement? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
My name is Ken Raftis and I live in Burswood Peninsula. And I guess my gripe is that with the levelling of that park down there, there was about 50 mature palm trees, groves of palm trees, and they all been butchered by a chainsaw and chipped, and they're not there anymore. They're finished. So much for keeping the park friendly for people walking through a nice, attractive park, but they butchered these trees. But they're not the only ones. They butchered other trees as well. They're just gone and chipped. So it's pretty horrible now at the moment. And people used to walk through there with their dogs and stuff like that, but it's all fenced off. You can't do that anymore. And I guess the other thing I want to have a go at is the what was it now? It's just soul destroying what's happening down there. And of course, the other one was that this place is supposed to be contaminated with asbestos. James Hardy had an asbestos works there, just pretty close to where it was, and there used to be a big clay pit there, and I think they bulldozed all the asbestos into the clay pit. And where we are in Burswood, we can't excavate more than 3 feet down, which is just over a metre, because of the contamination. But we noticed there that all the people working on that site they're not wearing any asbestos protection equipment, and nor is there any warnings on the fence line saying this is a contaminated area. People should not go across it. So they've got they're pushing ahead so quickly with this, they're not really considering the health of people, which will probably materialise some 30 or 40 years down the track when these people develop asbestos-related diseases. So that's the main thing I got to talk about, the health of these people working on that asbestos. It's sort of and I've worked with asbestos and I've got asbestos disease, so I know how easy it is to say, forget it, it's not going to happen to me, but it does. And not only that, when the ladies at home do the ironing and the washing, they shake all the clothes out and all this dust and asbestos, they're breathing it in as well. So it's just terrible stuff. So I think I'll leave it go at that. Thank you.
Look, thank you very much for coming and giving us your statement. We do appreciate your time. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a public statement? No? All right. On that basis, I will close public statement time at 6:52 p.m. Next item on the agenda is number 7, presentations. 7.1 is petitions, there are none. 7.2, presentations, there are none. And 7.3, deputations, there are none. Item 8 is method of dealing with the gender business, there are none. Item 9 is reports. We only have one report. That one report is 9.1, development application for portions of lot 2001, the Victoria Park Drive Road Reserve and the Camfield Drive Road Reserve, forming part of the Perth Park project. So, I intend to move an alternate motion to the officer's recommendation, and I'm going to deal with that by putting that up first, and then we'll go and determine if there are any questions. So, my alternate motion has been circulated with elected members in advance, so everyone should be able to see that. Alternate motion. It is now up on the screen. I apologise, it might be a little bit hard to read. There we go, we're getting it blown up a little bit. So my alternate motion in summary is that Council A recommends to the WA Planning Commission that the development application for portions of lot 2001 Victoria Park Road Reserve and the Camfield Drive Road Reserve forming part of the Perth Park project be refused as the development application does not satisfy the matters that must be considered under the provisions of Clause 43 of the Metropolitan Region Scheme, specifically Clause 43A, B, C, E, H, J, M, O, P and Z. Secondly, that Council recommends to the WA Planning Commission on a without prejudice basis that should the development application be considered for approval, the following conditions of approval should be imposed. Firstly, submission of the following technical reports and documents for approval by the WA Planning Commission: a site contamination investigation report, detailed landscaping plan and management plan, acid sulfate soils management plan, stormwater management plan, construction noise management plan, traffic impact assessment, event management plans for major events inclusive of transport management plans and noise management plans. Secondly, detailed engineering plans being provided for approval of the proposed works within the Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive Road Reserves. Thirdly, specifying the maximum number of existing trees to be removed, running out of breath here, to be removed, and the minimum number of new trees to be planted and the projected canopy coverage across the site at maturity. 4, limiting motorsport events to 1 event per year for a maximum of 3 days, excluding bump in and bump out periods, being during daylight hours Friday to Monday. 5, all costs associated with the works, including intersection and road improvements, to be borne by the state. 6, a maintenance and management agreement between the town and the state in relation to the construction, ownership and ongoing maintenance management of the relevant portions of Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive Road Reserves. And 7, the substantial commencement period for the development. There's a couple of advice notes, and then part C to the recommendation is to request the CEO to write to the Minister for Planning expressing concern that as works forming part of the Perth Park project have already commenced, this creates a perception that the development approval and community consultation process is not a genuine process and is being undertaken with the outcome already determined. So that is the wording of my alternate motion, and the summary of my reason is there's an absence of adequate justification contained within the development application report and accompanying documents as to how the development application satisfies the provisions of Clause 43 of the Metropolitan Region Scheme, with specific reference to 43A, B, C, E, H, J, M, O, P and Z. Therefore, it's considered that there is not a suitable level of information to justify a recommendation for approval, and the applicant should subsequently be recommended for refusal. I'll expand on my reasons in due course, but I understand Councillor Biondi, you're looking to second this alternate motion. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's seconded by Councillor Biondi. So as the mover of the alternate motion, I will speak to this. Much of my reasons are actually probably on the screen, but for those who are perhaps watching on live streaming and can't see all that detail, the particular reasons for recommending refusal to the WA Planning Commission, firstly, the feedback that has been referred to in one of the questions from a member of the public tonight. Feedback obtained from community consultation is one of the required matters to be considered under Clause 43Z of the MRS, and it's a significant input into the town's review, assessment and recommendation on the merits of any development application. Without being informed of this, the town cannot consider the community's feedback in providing its recommendation. The town has not been provided with details of the feedback and outcome received through the public consultation process. The consultation closes on 2 April. However, the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage has refused to grant an extension of time for the town to consider this DA until after the public consultation closes, meaning the town must assess the development application without the benefit or the value of the consultation. The applicant's submission itself does not provide necessary details as to how the development will satisfy relevant policies and considerations under the applicable planning framework pursuant to Clause 43 A, B, C or E of the Metropolitan Region Scheme. The applicant's submission also does not provide any details or independent reports as to how the development satisfies Clause 43M of the Metropolitan Region Scheme as to the likely effect of the proposal on the natural environment and any means that are proposed to protect or mitigate impacts on the natural environment, given there is surrounding parkland to the development lands and the Swan River foreshore is within metres of the development land. The applicant's submission also does not, The applicant's submission does not provide any details or plans as to how the development satisfies Clause 43P of the Metropolitan Region Scheme, namely the relationship of the proposal to the development to adjoining land. Whilst the applicant refers to this development application for a portion of Lot 2001, Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive as being interrelated to its other development on the adjoining Lot 2002, the applicant has not provided any plans for the development on the adjoining Lot 2002, making it impossible, in my opinion, to understand the extent of the interface between the development works that are the subject of this development application and that going on Lot 2002. Given the crucial nature of the civil construction works to expand Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive to make them suitable for use in the racetrack component of the development going on at Lot 2002, the Commission should not approve this development application without full disclosure of the development on the adjoining land as per Clause 43P. No justification or explanation has been provided as to why the noise impacts generated by the development are acceptable from a land use amenity perspective. An acoustic report has not been provided as part of this DA. On the 12th of March 2026, the town became aware that an acoustic report submitted as part of last year's environmental review with the EPA in 2025 is being used by the applicant to inform the assessment of the development application. It's recommended that an independent noise consultant be engaged to undertake a peer review of that report, as the town has identified items in the acoustic report which understates the noise impacts of the proposed entire development. There's also no details or plans as to how this development will satisfy Clause 43N of the Metropolitan Region Scheme relating to whether land to which the application relates is unsuitable for the proposal because it is or is likely to be subject to flooding, tidal inundation, subsidence, landslip, bushfire or other similar risk. The applicant acknowledges that the land at Lot 2002 is subject to flooding and subsidence, but only bases its mitigation on reports from the development of the stadium and Crown Towers, which occurred more than a decade ago, meaning there's nothing current to rely upon, and the geotechnical investigations conducted in late 2025, referred to by the applicant in its report, are stated as not yet complete. And there appears to be a discrepancy between the number of existing trees as audited by the town's contract arborist and the number of trees that are shown on the development plans. So in short, there's an awful lot of information that has not been provided for a development of this size and nature, and even though it appears to only be a portion of the overall development at Perth Park, it is quite clear that Victoria Park Drive and the Camfield Drive are crucial to the ultimate racetrack. And if we cannot understand what is being proposed at Lot 2002 on the papers before this council, I don't understand how we could ever support doing anything other than refusing this development application. So that would be the reason for the alternative report to recommend that the WAPC refuse it. Councillor Biondi, as the seconder, do you wish to be heard?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just keep my points brief and perhaps just expand on what the Mayor has said. So Clause 43B of the Metropolitan Region Scheme talks about orderly and proper planning. And it is my view, after having considered the detailed information within the officer's report and their review, that we are seeing disorderly and improper planning in this instance. So and an example of that is the fact that construction or development is going ahead of a development approval being in place that is prejudicing and is, in my view, means that the application is not genuine in nature. I will also just note, and I know that this isn't listed as a reason, Madam Mayor, but if I could just have it on the record, if this is okay. Clause 36 of the Metropolitan Region Scheme it talks specifically about the accompanying material that is required to have a valid development application. And it talks about the level of detail that's required on the plans, and even the plans themselves are quite difficult to read and understand what it is that we'd actually be approving. But it also talks about the level of information that's required in terms of the technical reports that must support a development application and make it based on its merit, to be assessed on its merit. So the fact that, we don't even have an acoustic report, and just knowing a little bit about town planning myself and acoustic matters, it's not even clear to me what pathway this development would get approval under the acoustic regulation. So would it be a Regulation 18 or a Regulation 19B? And I would think we would need, as a decision maker or someone providing comments, some certainty around how that process is even going. So for me, really, it's the cart before the horse, and in this instance, I just do not feel that with the blatant disregard or lack thereof information provided by the proponent, it's just not genuine in nature. So I urge fellow councillors to support the alternate recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Biondi. Given some of the matters that you've raised and that the alternative motion is put up today, noting that it's different in its form to the officer's recommendation, which currently recommends that the WA Planning Commission be informed that the town is unable to offer a recommendation. I've got a number of questions that I'd like to ask of the administration before I find out if there is dissent and we'll be going to voting. So I've got some questions. The first of those questions is whether the town considers that this development application does comply with Clause 35, subsection 3C of the Metropolitan Region Scheme, which requires a development application to be accompanied by any plans and other information required under Clause 36 of the Metropolitan Region Scheme. If I could direct that question to the Manager of Development Services, Mr. Cruikshank.
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. Under Clause 38(1) of the MRS, the DPLH, or Department of Planning's officers acting for the Commission, are required to consider whether the submitted application and accompanying material satisfies clauses 34 to 36. The DPLH officers, in accepting the application on the 4th of February, have considered the application to be complete and complying with clause 35(3)(c). It should be noted that clause 36 relates to sufficient information being received for an application to be accepted for assessment, and clause 39(1) notes that further information may be identified and requested during the assessment process.
Thank you. Can you advise whether the WA Planning Commission has waived any of the requirements for accompanying documents as per clause 36 of the Metropolitan Region Scheme? Mr Cruikshank?
Thank you. Not that the town's officers are aware of.
All right, thank you. If there has been no waiver by the Commission of the requirements of clause 36, is the town able to say whether the applicant has complied with the Metropolitan Region Scheme by providing all of the accompanying documents that are specified in clause 36? Mr Cruikshank?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I said before, the application has been accepted by the DPLH, and they are responsible for considering whether the application satisfies clause 36. So they have formed the view that the application does satisfy clause 36.
Thank you. My next question then is, which documents has the applicant provided in compliance with clause 36 of the Metropolitan Region Scheme, and which documents have not been provided in the town's opinion? Mr Cruikshank?
Thank you. Having received these questions late this afternoon, the town's officers have not been able to undertake our own review of which documents satisfy clause 36 and which may not. And as I have said before, in any event, officers of the department are responsible for ensuring clause 36 is satisfied.
All right, thank you. Did the town request further information from the applicant to address the deficiencies that the town has identified in the officer's report? Mr Cruikshank?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I understand it, the question relates to requesting further information from the applicant. In that respect, no, the town has not requested further information from the applicant. However, we did request the department to agree to provide the results of the community feedback once the public consultation period closes.
All right, thank you. Given that the town's report identifies a number of deficiencies in terms of lack of plans, lack of details and information about how the applicant addresses the matters that are required to be addressed under clause 43, is there a reason why the town didn't make a request of the applicant to provide further information to address the deficiencies that had been identified? Mr Cruikshank?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There were delays in the town's officers commencing their assessment of the application, as the town's officers were seeking clarification from the department on some process-related matters. It took 4 weeks for the department's officers to respond in full to the town's queries. The deficiencies in the application were identified only within the last 2 weeks once the officers had undertaken their assessment. Given a hard deadline set by the department of 25th of March for the town to provide its recommendation, there was insufficient time available for the town's officers to request the outstanding information to be responded to by the applicant for inclusion in tonight's report.
Thank you. Is the town aware of whether the Commission requested the applicant in writing to provide any further information or material that the Commission might reasonably require to determine the application pursuant to clause 39 subsection 1 of the Metropolitan Region Scheme? Mr Cruikshank?
Thank you. No, not that the town's officers are aware of. If the recommendation of the town's officers on the papers tonight is adopted, then we would expect that the department would direct the applicant to address the outstanding matters.
All right, thank you. Paragraph 5 of the officer's report refers to the Metropolitan Region Scheme Consent Form number 1, having been signed by an authorised officer of the Department of Lands acting for the Crown, and this is in relation to the MRS consent form that the town refused to sign. Are you able to advise us who is the authorised officer of the Department of Lands acting for the Crown who signed that consent form, and under what legislative power did they sign it? Mr Cruikshank?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The MRS Form 1 development application form pertaining to the portions of the Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive road reserves is signed by an officer of the Department of Lands, identified as the Director, Land, Metro and South. I'll say that again, as a Director, Land Management, Metro and South. The land is owned by the state, and under Section 267A of the Planning and Development Act, the development application form may be signed by either the Minister or a person who is authorised in writing by the Minister.
Thank you for that. Paragraph 27 of the officer's report states that Clause 43 of the MRS, meaning the Metropolitan Region Scheme, outlines the matters that the WAPC are to consider in determining the development application, but it doesn't list what those matters are. Should the matters referred to in Clause 43 as the applicable considerations for this application be stated within the officer's report with a corresponding summary from the town as to whether each of those matters have been addressed by the development application? Mr Cruikshank?
Thank you. Such a summary is contained at pages 23 to 29 of the applicant's DA report, being attachment 9.1.2. On reflection, maybe the town's report could have included a similar table assessing the proposal against each Clause 43 matter, but that would have been in the context of our view that there is insufficient information provided to assess the proposal against Clause 43 and other matters.
Thank you. And finally, paragraph 28 of the officer's report states that the town has been advised that no extension of time will be granted. And so I guess it's a bit of an assumption. Did the town formally request an extension of time? And if so, when did they do that and for what purpose, Mr Cruikshank?
Thank you. The town's officers requested that officers of the department agree to provide us with a schedule of the public submissions within a few days of the closure of the public advertising period, being the 2nd of April, so that the public submissions could inform the officer's report and recommendation to council. This would have required an extension of time to be granted. We were intending upon formally requesting an extension of time upon receiving such an agreement, but instead we were advised that this would not be possible and verbally advised that no extension of time will be granted.
All right, thank you, appreciate that. I have one further question that I didn't send through, and it does relate to that part of the recommendation which appears in both the officer's recommendation and my alternate motion about what the WA Planning Commission should do by way of conditions of approval. And specifically, this is one that a member of the public had raised it with me about, I guess you'd call it pollution air quality monitoring. And so I'm wanting some advice from the town as to whether that's the sort of thing that we should be including as one of the conditions of approval. So we've got things like site contamination investigation report, but then you've got a lot of management plans. I'm just not sure that any of the management plans listed go towards this issue about air quality monitoring / pollution. So I'm hoping I've made myself clear as to what it is I'm looking for. I'm just not sure what kind of condition of approval would impose that on any development approval that might be granted by the WAPC, so we could have something for the duration of the works. I'll leave that with you, Mr Cruikshank. If you need more time to think about it, please take all the time you need.
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. So if I can just seek clarification, are you talking with respect to air quality during the construction phase, or are we also talking air quality during the ongoing operations? Because I suppose I would just say that at page 11 of the applicant's DA report with respect to the earthwork construction stage, They do say under the heading of air quality, during construction of the proposal, activities such as bulk earthworks and the movement of construction machinery are likely to generate dust. This will be managed in accordance with site management plans, including the Project Construction Environmental Management Plan, which will inform relevant monitoring requirements and appropriate controls. I say that insofar as if you accept that, then the need for a construction environmental management plan, I think it's largely addressed by item B. B1E.
So you think that construction management plan is sufficient to pick up that particular issue? I tend to be concerned that construction management plan is really going to manage the construction vehicles in and out of the site, the loading of the site with construction materials, but not necessarily that extra piece. And so I'm wondering if you can think of a name for something that we could include, noting that what you just read out seemed to have a fairly technical name for something. So is it construction management and environmental management plan, or should we just have something extra in there that's an environmental management plan? I'll just see if you can tell me what you think.
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. If there is concern that a construction management plan isn't broad enough to carry air quality, then I think it would be prudent to just add another item and call it, as the applicant has, construction environmental management plan.
So, Councillor Biondi, I am considering this issue of adding an extra one in as construction environmental management plan. Obviously, you're the seconder, but we could incorporate this, but you might have a view about this yourself based on your own experience. So do you think a construction environmental management plan will address the issue of air quality and pollution from the construction works?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be inclined to just add another line and say a dust management plan and be specific about, you could perhaps be specific and say it's about air quality during the construction phase, or add it into the construction management plan limb of B at E, construction and dust management plan.
Yep, all right. Go back to Mr. Cruikshank. Could we add to the words construction management plan some extra information that says including but not limited to control of dust, pollution? I don't want to get into workshopping it too much, sadly, from the public gallery. But Mr. Cruikshank.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I see no problem in adding words to that effect. I suppose my own experience has been a construction management plan generally would deal with dust, but the council can just be clear on what its expectations are by adding words to that effect.
Yep, all right. So I think on that basis, we'll add in the word will it work if it says construction management plan including pollution and dust management? Will that be sufficient? Yep. All right. So if I can just get the minute taker to add those words into the end of E, construction management plan, to say including pollution and dust management. All right. I'm told we've got that added in, so it'll come up. All right, so that's been added in. So Councillor Biondi, you're happy to accept that? All right. Okay. I don't currently have any further questions, but I am going to throw it open for elected members if you have questions that you wish to ask of the administration. Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just sort of following up this brief tweak to the proposed amendment, looking at including pollution and dust management, in the opinion of the town staff, would that normally include airborne particulates, of the like of which a member of the public has raised potential concern about tonight?
Mr Cruikshank.
Madam Mayor, I guess I can only speak to my own experience in looking at construction management plans, and typically I think dust is probably the only air quality matter that I see regularly addressed in construction management plans. So with the, I guess the additional wording that has been put forward, obviously that will include pollution. I would take that to probably include airborne particles, yeah.
I can say, Councillor Ingram, that the intention there was, we obviously do know from the report and indeed the applicant's own development application report, they're aware that this is a contaminated site that's been remediated, but some years ago, but it's pretty obvious that everyone does have a level of awareness, including the applicant, that there are particulates under the ground at least that are known pollutants and contaminants. So that's why including the words pollution and dust management covers both dust itself, meaning the disturbance of the soil, but pollution would mean any matters that are in the air that are polluting. So they're the ones that you would be expecting them to manage by way of appropriate mitigation measures and doing some quality monitoring, I would have thought, and testing to make sure that they're getting that right. Does that sort of help?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That clarifies my question. I just want to make sure that the intention was clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Biondi.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I spoke a moment ago with respect to my reason for supporting the alternate. I mentioned Regulation 18 and 19B acoustic approvals. I just wanted to know if there had been any discussion between DPLH and the town in relation to that and any understanding around that approval.
All right, I'll refer that to Mr Cruikshank.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could just be given one moment, please. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the question. Referring back to the documentation that was provided as part of the EPA review, that included a document responding to environmental related considerations. And what that document says is that with respect to the various noise related approvals that will be applied for, it says that motorsport events will initially be managed under a noise management plan developed under Regulation 16A or 18 of the noise regulations. And that would be an approval and decision by the CEO of Department of Water and Environmental Regulation. It then goes on to say that ultimately the noise for all events will be seeking an approval under Regulation 19B as a major venue. So that would be similar to Optus Stadium, which has a approval as a venue to exceed the assigned levels under the noise regulation. So I guess to answer the question, initially looking at a Regulation 16A or 18 pathway, and then ultimately looking at a Regulation 19 venue approval.
I think, though, Councillor Biondi had asked whether there had been any discussions between the department and the town about this as well. If you could address that, Mr Cruikshank.
Yeah, thank you, sorry. No discussion today. There was a request of the applicant before they lodged the DA to understand what pathway they were going down, but no discussion with the department officers.
All right, thank you. Anything further, Councillor Biondi?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a follow-up question, and I am conscious we need to stay within the confines of the item, but I'm just curious to understand perhaps the officer's position. So if a Reg 19B were to be granted, and my understanding is they're quite difficult to obtain, would that Reg 19B need to consider the noise associated with Optus Stadium as a whole precinct? Would that approval process, or perhaps even the planning application, should it provide some clarity around that as an sort of like an entertainment precinct? Because this is not operating, in my view, in isolation to itself. Sorry, I might not be quite clear. You can, yeah. I'm just thinking more holistically and strategically. And if I could, Madam Mayor, just noting, the Northbridge Special Entertainment Precinct has a whole planning framework around it for acoustic issues and acoustic levels in that 90 dB, and we don't sort of have that here, but it's turning into that. I'm just raising the question: has that been considered or discussed with the applicant?
Mr Cruikshank?
Madam Mayor, the only discussion with the applicant so far on the issue of noise was what pathway are they going down to obtain the relevant approvals under the noise regulations. If they were to lodge an application for a 19B venue approval in the same way that Optus Stadium has and does have an approval as a venue, I couldn't say, I don't know how the regulation 19B, the noise modelling that would occur in support of this not regulation 19B application, whether it just looks at the noise generated by the activities occurring on Perth Park alone, or whether it considers the cumulative impact of other nearby. I suspect the answer might be that it takes into regard an influencing factor from surrounding uses that also generate noise, but I don't know that for certain, and as I say, that will have to follow a separate approval pathway in the future under separate legislation. And I suppose just to point out that, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Anything further, Councillor Biondi?
Perhaps one more question. Would you consider, through the chair, that the ability of this land use, Perth Park and all its different components, and the associated activities on operations is tied to or has a strong relationship to that next stage of acoustic approval, and the ability for that land use to operate here should be questioned further?
Mr Cruikshank?
Madam Mayor, so the consideration of noise impacts really needs to be looked at from two perspectives. So one is the land use and planning perspective, and obviously we're dealing with a planning application at the moment. So it needs to be considered whether the noise impacts from the activities that will occur are acceptable from a land use and amenity perspective. As we've put forward in the report, there's really no information that addresses how the noise generated by this proposal satisfies or even what the impact is on the amenity of the locality. Separately, there's obviously there in the future, if approval were to be granted, there's a separate regulatory process through the environmental noise regulations that the applicant will need to go through. So just to be clear, under the noise regulations, there are assigned levels. So basically any sort of activity can operate in compliance with the assigned noise levels. However, for activities that are going to exceed the noise levels, there's these alternative pathways that they can go down to seek essentially an exemption, or for levels that are going to exceed the assigned levels. So clearly, as you'd expect for a motorsport event, it's not going to comply with the assigned levels, and it's seeking a variation or approval of noise which will exceed the assigned noise levels by way of the Regulation 16A pathway, Regulation 18 or Regulation 19B. So they will have to go through those processes in the future. But relevantly, at this point in time, we have a development application before us. You're being asked to approve or support that application. I guess in turn you're being asked as to whether you're satisfied that the noise impacts have no amenity impact, and our conclusion is that there's insufficient information provided to be satisfied that the amenity impact relating to noise is acceptable.
Anything further, Councillor Biondi?
No, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Minson.
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. I have a question on point 6 of our proposed conditions. Have there been any preliminary discussions around a maintenance and management agreement between the town and the state in relation to the Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive?
Mr Doy, Chief Community Planner.
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. Thanks for the question, Councillor Minson. There's been no detailed discussions around a maintenance and management agreement, no discussions around the detail, other than to say that there is an expectation from the state government that the town would play a role in maintenance and management of the land that applies to the town.
Can I ask a follow-up question from that? Given that under the, I think is it the Lands Act, the control and management of Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive sits with the town as the notional owner, hence the reason we were asked to provide the consent for the Metropolitan Region Scheme application form. Does the state have the power to compel the town to maintain roads after they've been used for 3 days for a motor racing event with supercars on it, including having to repair damage to the tarmac and the like? Mr Doy.
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. In terms of being able to compel the town, I actually don't know the answer to that question, whether they can, unless the Chief Operating Officer or CEO knows the answer to that question. I've certainly not experienced a state government compelling a town on its road to maintain it after an event or to undertake works immediately after an event.
All right, thank you. So would it be the case that the only comparable event that has been held in Western Australia on a portion of public roads for a race would be Rally Australia down Riverside Drive, such that we could find out what has occurred in the past with regards to how that road was treated and fixed up later? Mr Doy?
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. In the yes, we could find out. I don't. That's a historic event, so to find that information could be a challenge, but it would be worth exploring, especially if we found ourselves in the future investigating a maintenance and management agreement.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from elected members? Councillor Ingram.
Just following on from the Mayor's earlier question, not the immediate one past the one prior. If these roads were to be maintained as part of the town on an ongoing basis, once this project, say, went through, what sort of capacity would the town have to implement any form of traffic calming or any traffic management along that stretch, as there's obviously an inherent risk with building it up to FIA Grade 3 standard that other people will intend to use that stretch of road in, shall we say, inappropriate manners at different times?
Mr Doy?
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. Roads such as Vic Park Drive and Camfield Drive out on the Burswood Peninsula require a special working relationship with state authorities, and they are subject to those special arrangements at the moment because of the nature of Optus Stadium. So traffic management, especially pre and post event periods, is an exercise that's led by Main Roads and the PTA, and on ongoing traffic management and any contemplation of works would need to be done in careful collaboration with those authorities.
I think that I understood Councillor Ingram's question a bit differently. For example, in the long term, would we be able to put traffic calming measures on those roads if they begin to be used by hoons, as they currently are at night time for a little bit of a, want to be a supercar driver, go out to Burswood Park, such that we would get complaints and the response to those complaints would be traffic calming measures. I'm imagining from what you said, we would probably have no luck installing traffic calming measures on a portion of roads that are otherwise used annually for a supercars track. Mr. Doy?
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. So on any local road, any change to a local road that results in changes to lines and regulatory signs requires main roads approval anyway. So any traffic calming measures that we would propose to mitigate concern that required lines changes and signs changes would require regulatory approval for main roads. But any proposal that we would have, we would be, because of a concern that arose, we would be dealing with those authorities and working collaboratively with them to try and find an arrangement.
Councillor Ingram?
Thank you. So if I've understood your response correctly, this would position the town with the responsibility for the maintenance of those roads and answering to the local community regarding any future ongoing use once any adjustments or changes have been made. But it would also somewhat hamstring our ability to adequately respond to community concerns that may be raised in the future. Is that correct?
Mr. Doy?
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. With all of our roads, there is a level of approval or consent that we're required to obtain to make changes. So we could define that as being hamstrung, but that's the case for all of our local roads. But I would say, as I said before, there is a special relationship for Camfield and Vic Park Drive because of its proximity to Optus Stadium and the ongoing involvement of main roads and PTA. So there is a extra level of effort that we would have to go through if we were wanting to make any changes.
In other words, we might find installing speed humps around there is practically impossible. Anything further, Councillor Ingram?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, any other questions from any elected members? Councillor Biondi?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a random thought bubble based on that discussion regarding the road. Has there been any discussion around making those roads primary regional road reserve?
Who's able to answer that, Mr. Cruikshank?
No.
Anything further, Councillor Biondi?
Yes, thank you. Is that something that could be considered so we don't have to handle it if it were? Cross my heart, hopefully this doesn't go ahead, but if it were to go ahead?
Mr. Cruikshank?
Sorry, I was just taking the easy one, the no. Madam Mayor, I would have thought obviously it needs to meet a functional road hierarchy to be reclassified as a different category of road. So I don't know whether Victoria Park Drive would be in the threshold, the minimum volumes to be considered that way. I suspect not.
Anything further, Councillor Biondi?
No, that's fine. We'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Madam
All
Mayor.
right, thank you. All right, well, if there are no further questions from elected members, I'll formally ask, is there any dissent to the alternate motion? Because if there is, we'll need to move to debate. No, I'm not seeing any dissent, so on that basis, I declare the alternate motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you everyone for your contributions to that. I know that planning matters are never easy for us to deal with because they are a complicated legislative scheme that we have to work within. So appreciate that and appreciate the town staff's advice on the myriad of questions and the alternate motion as well. Now come to item 10 on our agenda, which is again public question time, which I now open at 7:40 and ask of the public gallery, is there any questions that you wish to ask in relation to this matter? Robin Harvey. You just state your name again and your suburb, please.
East Perth, co-chair of Save Burswood Park Alliance. A couple of questions. When I first went to meetings with Daniel Pastorelli at the Burswood Park offices, he was quite clear. He clearly stated to me, and I actually have that information, that there would be bollards put up to prevent racing along the racetrack. I'm wondering if that's anywhere in the DA, particularly along Roger Mackay, the new road called the old Roger Mackay Drive. I'd be really interested to know that, because that was clearly stated.
Sorry, can I just clarify? Were you asking about the new Roger Mackay?
Well, I'm asking about all of it. So Camfield Drive as well, just because we were talking about traffic calming.
So I just need to make clear that the new Roger Mackay Drive is not part of this development
No,
application.
I understand that.
But it is the case that the development application plans, as hard as they were to read and understand, this is attachment 9.1.4, and I'm sure that Mr. Shank will direct us right to the point. There is at least one plan in there that purports to show something called bollards, and
Yes,
there's a little
okay.
text box that talks about bollards to be removed. I can't tell you because there wasn't any nice, easy key attached to those plans saying exactly how many are going,
Okay.
whether they're being replaced by something or what's going to happen. But it is a question that I think only Mr. Cruikshank can answer in respect to this development application's development land, which comprises that whole portion of Camfield Drive and
Yep.
the portion of Vic Park Drive. What does happen with regards to the bollards that currently are around those areas?
Yes.
Because as I say, I'm afraid I found the development plans all Greek to me.
Can I comment that I read the development application that was on the WA Planning Commission, and I found it very frustrating that they were talking about this specific part that you can approve, but they were clearly stating that it was a single construction site. So as far as the community is concerned, it is a single consideration. It is not, I know you can't influence the whole thing, but they're clearly saying it's a full concept and it's being built as a full concept, and they're only going to you because there is a small section that they can't legally say railroad through. Now, my second question is around...
Well, sorry, before you move to your second
sorry,
question...
still looking? I thought you said no.
No, I'm going to do two things.
Yep.
First, I'm going to let the officers have a little more time and let them tell me when they are able, if they are in fact able from the development plans, to answer your question. But what you just said that was by way of a observation about the plans, I'm going to treat that as a statement for the purposes of item 11 of our agenda, because this item strictly is just questions.
Okay,
So
sorry.
if you can just give us a couple of more minutes time, because I do want the officers to be able to say whether they can find the answer to your question. Might be that they have to take it on notice, which then means we can get that information out to you on a later date, because again, the plans are not an easy read.
No.
So I am seeing looks of consternation coming from that side, so that might suggest that people are not finding what they're looking for really quickly.
Yeah.
But we'll just, as I say, we'll wait and see. They'll let us know when they're ready.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the demolition plans, there is a notation where there's a red dot that's said to represent bollards to be removed. And from a look at that drawing, it appears that that red dot indicating bollards to be removed is represented in a couple of places along Victoria Park Drive. maybe 3 locations along Victoria Park Drive, it would appear that there are existing bollards to be removed. In terms of the future works, there is a notation on the plans, a blue dot for permanent bollards and a green dot for removable bollards. But when I look at the relevant drawings, I cannot see on any of those drawings a blue dot or a green dot. So I could take it that there are none, or I could probably more likely take it that they're not shown.
Thank
So
you.
I will ask this, Mr. Cruikshank. I'm looking now at page 2, or it's coming up on my Docs on Tap presentation, that at page 2 of 9.1.4, there is a place, I'll have to shrink the size of it so I can see it all, but it says bollard demolition adjacent to Roger Mackay Drive. I'm not sure if that helps because I see it in other places as well. And this one does have the red dots that you referred to as bollards to be removed, but then there's a whole red line on this second page, and you can see that it runs along the edge of Roger Mackay Drive, as in the existing Roger Mackay Drive, and it's a hard red line, and just to the right-hand side of the page, midway in the page, is a little text box saying bollard demolition adjacent to Roger Mackay Drive, and then that text box is very close to the beginning of the red hatched area saying existing road to be removed. So I'm actually thinking, though, those are the bollards. They're just those small wooden post things that are about up to your knee that currently run along that area that sort of like act as a delineation between vegetation and roadway. But I think, I just want to be clear, I think you're talking about something different, aren't you, in terms of bollards? You're talking about something that will prevent a certain type of use on the roadways. Is that
Yes.
right, Ms. Harvey? All right. So I don't know if there's much more we can help with at this stage.
Okay.
Mr. Cruikshank's indicating doesn't look like it. Again, I don't know, I might suggest you'd like to meet with Mr. Pastorelli and ask him to
I
explain
may
the plans
do, but
to
he
you.
won't come and he won't meet me.
Oh, well, maybe I'll ask him. Maybe he'll meet me. We'll see. Keeps saying that he will.
I've got a second question about the large Moreton Bay trees that are close to Camfield Drive that haven't yet been demolished. I was hunting the diagrams to understand whether they are going to be killed off. Can you, as a planning person, give me clarity on that, or give the community clarity on whether they are going to be chopped down in the widening?
I'll refer that question to Mr. Cruikshank.
Sorry, Mr. Cruikshank.
That's all right. He loves these questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, we can only go by what we've received. There are some drawings called landscape drawings, which show the trees that are to be retained and the new landscape planting, albeit, as we have outlined in the report, there is some questions around whether all trees to be removed are actually indicated or whether it's only picked up trees over a certain height. So I'd have to say, first of all, I'm not exactly sure of the trees that are referred to by Ms. Harvey.
I think the problem is the trees that you're referring to are trees that are in lot 2002. Not
Oh, are
lot
they there?
2001.
I could see the widening happening.
So these are large ones.
Yes.
I called them Port Jacksons. But
Oh, well.
they may be Moreton Bays. They look more like Port Jackson figs to me. But there's a raft of them, and they look to me to be at least 40 years old. I think they were planted very early in the construction of the golf course. But they do actually run along the edge of the
202.
Camfield Drive, 202.
Okay.
So although this is about Camfield Drive and the widening, if you have a look at page 3 of these, it shows a long stretch of Camfield, and in the shadow in the background you can see the rest of the park, and you can see that arc of the palm trees, the iconic arc that used to say Burswood Park, which are now gone. but you can see the shadow of some really large tree canopy there. And they're roughly speaking in the indentation. So this is on the 3rd page. And so they're in the shadows in the grey. There it is, it's on the screen now. So there's 2 really big ones that you can see.
Yep.
And they're just over from that walking path that appears in the lighter colour. So they're right next to the Camfield Drive, and that was one of the things I was looking for in the plans, was where's the evidence of where the widening will occur, etc., and how far does it ingress that way into the park, because there's not much space the other way, because that big darker side at the bottom of the plan is actually a lake.
I was just going to say
And so
that's a
I
lake.
don't think unless they plan to fill that in and build the road over that, which kind of doesn't look like what this plan is suggesting, but again, it's like, not sure. Mr. Cruikshank? I just don't know that we know this, because we don't have any details of what's going on in lot 2002.
No.
So, yeah, Mr. Cruikshank says that's the problem. We don't have visibility over that.
Yes. And if they're considering, I don't know if this is a statement, if they are going to consider this project as a whole, how come they're not providing you with the full plan?
I'm just going to save Mr. Cruikshank the trouble of answering that, and I'm going to say it's because they can, because they're using the Casino Burswood Island Agreement Act as saying that part is covered by that legislation, and that legislation basically removes the need for planning approval under your metropolitan region scheme, under your town planning scheme, etc. So they're going for that, which doesn't have any approval process other than through the Burswood Park Board. So that's why they're not showing it to us.
Okay. Last question to do with noise. Given the experience that we've had with noise and Optus Stadium, that we don't complain about because it's Optus Stadium, how will the town take account of residents' concerns about significant increases in noise from, one, the motorsport, and 2, an outdoor venue that has no noise protection, unlike Optus Stadium? We, as East Perth residents, opposed the Reg 19, the number of events at Optus Stadium, but it was discounted. Not that we think there shouldn't be events, it just seemed like there was a significant number. And I know we have requested that the town of Vic Park and the City of Perth work together to coordinate noisy events so that they're not occurring every weekend. Now, I'd be very interested in how the town will assess noise impact on amenity for residents within the town and across the river. When the 19B comes up.
Mr. Cruikshank?
Madam Mayor, because it's a future process, the 19B process, and obviously it's reliant upon approval being granted for the DA, we probably haven't turned our mind to it to a great extent as to that future process. But interestingly, and what I don't quite understand at the moment, is that with the Regulation 19B process for Optus Stadium, that was a process that, as was said, was consulted, and ultimately it was the CEO of the town who was required to make a decision on whether to grant that 19B approval or not. It's said by the applicant to date that they believe that the 19B approval process for the Perth Park DA and all its activities is going to be through the CEO of the state agency, Department of Water and Environmental Regulation. So, first of all, I'm having a little bit difficult in answering the question because I don't quite understand why in one instance it was the town making the decision. On the other instance, it seems that they believe it's going to be the state making the decision. So I guess I could only say if it was the town to be making the decision, and I presume the same if it was to be the state, that, there'll be noise modelling reports, and they'll have to provide details about the regularity of the events that occur, because at the moment that's unknown, other than we're told there'll be one motorsport event, but we don't know how many events are occurring in the amphitheatre and the surrounds. We don't know the hours. We don't know the types of music, etc. So there's a lot of unknowns at the moment, but they would have to do that noise modelling, submit it, and I guess we've got professionals who'll have to make a judgment as to whether it's appropriate or not, looking at the general benefit to the public versus the inconvenience that maybe some nearby residents may have to experience. So it'll be a balancing act.
Final question in that, will you consider the cumulative impact? Because it seems like nearby residents are bearing a lot of burden for public benefit.
Mr Cruikshank?
Madam Mayor, my expertise is not in noise. It's I'm probably better placed answering planning questions, but I expect it will be, but it may be prudent for Ms Harvey to speak to the town's environmental health officers, maybe to understand that better.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mr Cruikshank, is it possible that the reason there's that difference, or it's suggested there will be that difference in who would do approvals for your environmental noise regulations matters, is because Optus Stadium sits within the Metropolitan Region scheme, whereas Lot 2002 does not? And so maybe that's why it's proposed that it goes to a head of a state agency, or is it the case that the environmental noise regs just apply everywhere and it's only ever determined by the CEO of the local government district in which it occurs? Mr Doy seems to be nodding that he thinks that's the effect, so that makes the applicant's stated position even more inexplicable. Mr Doy?
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. Our environmental health officers and the legislation they're required to administer, as well as our building surveyors, already play a role in the area that's governed by the Burswood Island Casino Agreement Act. Yep. It's planning exemption that is explicit within the Act.
Okay. To your other point, though, Ms Harvey, it is the case that historically, as I understand it, from when I was woken at almost midnight by East Perth residents calling me to complain about noise coming from Optus Stadium, I received an answer from the administration at that stage to say that the town obviously has the responsibility for administering those matters with the creator of the noise, but the recipient of the noise, say a resident in East Perth, the town's staff don't have the power to go to a resident in East Perth's home and do the noise monitoring, but they can talk to their counterparts at the City of Perth, who will do that noise monitoring and then share the outcome of it with the town, so that the town can then take that up with whoever is the venue operator that's creating the noise, whether it's Burswood-on-Swan, the Optus Stadium, Crown, and the like. And there is that level of collaboration between the two local governments for how to do that. How successful that is, I don't know, and how that translates to how the town manages all the complaints about it and where they're coming from, I don't know. But we may be about to find out. So, but I'd encourage you to take up Mr Cruikshank's suggestion, maybe of having a word to the town's environmental health officer about how that proceeds.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the public? Yes, Mr Raftis, come forward.
Ken Rathers, Burswood. Just adding to Robin's comments with the noise, 2 weeks ago I think it was, the power sports boats were on the river there, and the noise coming just from one boat was horrendous, and someone said to me, well, that's only about 1/10 of a V8 sports car, and the noise coming through to my home from the river it's just unbelievable. Even though we've got the towers in front of us, which is sort of a barrier, but the noise still came through. So that's another issue that should be addressed with accumulation with the other noises.
Look, thank you for that. This actually is public question time. So did you have a question? Because I'll note your statement that you've just made, but I'll also note that noise from the Water Sports Association on the river is actually outside the terms of the item on our agenda.
okay,
And under our rules, special council meetings can only deal with the item that is in the agenda. So noting your point, we are aware, because we do get regular complaints every year from members of our community about the noise from the jet boats down on the Swan River outside Burswood, but I'm afraid I can't deal with that tonight due to our rules around the agenda. But have heard what you've had to say, so thank you for sharing that.
So I raised it because we're talking about the V8s, the supercar noise, and alongside that, which hasn't been mentioned, was the accumulation with those, was another one, which is...
Yep, I've certainly heard you on that score. So,
Thank
and
you.
I hear the jet boats at my house, so I know how you feel, and I live further away than you do. So, thank you. Are there any other questions about the item on the agenda tonight? No? All right, I'll close public question time at 8:01 p.m. Item 11 on the agenda is public statement time, which I now open at 8:01. Are there any statements from members of the public? No, there being no statements, I'll close public statement time at 8:01 p.m. Item 12 is matters for which the meeting may be closed to the public. We don't have any of those, and so there being no further business of this special council meeting, I'll declare it closed at 8:01 p.m. Thank you everyone who came along. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you to those who watched on live streaming, and also to councillors and the staff. Good evening everyone, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.